Hello and welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the vlog, welcome back to the car, welcome back to Cornwall, welcome back to Hail on a winter's afternoon. Yep, it is winter, but it is midway through February, and one of the nice things is that that is a couple of days before Valentine's Day, but it does still feel like spring. It's warm outside, it's very windy outside, like super windy, but it is blue skies. We haven't seen any leaves coming through on the trees yet, but some of the roses at work have been flowering. Although they do flower in January, so that's the thing. We have all the seabirds out in flats, which you probably can't even see because there are salt flats right next to Hail. And yeah, it is beginning to look a lot like a new year, a new dawn, a new day, a new era. Which is good, and I've been doing things. Last week oh wow, just interrupted. There's an electric car there, and it's an electric Mustang. A Ford Mustang and electric. What a weird concept. Strange. Anyway, yes, I've been doing things. I've been writing, specifically. That's one of the things that I've been doing. And the writing has been coming on. So if you've been watching the other vlogs, you'll know that I've been getting into short story writing because I've already written a full-length novel, and to be honest, it was a pain in my ass. These things tend to be because, well, it's a lot of words to write down, a lot of plates to balance when you are doing a lot of writing, and I'm not really happy with that. I'm going to be honest, but I did learn a lot about process, about how to go about writing a story, and how to break the rules. It's like photography. Once you know the rules, you know how to break them. You can start taking pictures directly into the heart of the sun and get results. So yeah, I looked back at my notes because the short story that I'm writing currently, it's probably just over 5,000 words. I reckon it's going to be between 5,500 and 6,000 words. In terms of length, which is interesting because in my mind, quite naively, I thought, 2,500 words, done, not a problem. It's a horror story, and it's one based off a dream that I had one time. And I have got to the point where I'm now in the final act of the story, and I realized something, that, you know what? This does not follow the hero's journey. What? What is the hero's journey? The hero's journey is a very well-known and very accepted way of writing long-form stories. So, for example, Luke in Star Wars, Episode 4: A New Hope. Luke is a farm boy, and he sets off on a journey, and he meets new friends along the way. But he is met by adversity, which he has to overcome. And there is a high point in the journey at the start, and then there is a low point in the middle, and then at the end there is a high point again, and he defeats the bad guys, defeats the evil, which is basically the same as Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress, because that is exactly what Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope was based on. Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress. But yes, the hero's journey. It is an accepted way of writing stories, because if the hero just walked in and just mowed everyone down or punched the bad guy through a plate glass window straight away, you wouldn't have much of a story. There wouldn't be any stakes, there wouldn't be anything for the reader to worry about, or wouldn't be anything for the reader to, read. It would just be Chad Everyman beating his way through the story without any stakes, without any danger. And that's the hero's journey. Hollywood uses it a lot. Hollywood basically rinses the hero's journey. But I realized that the hero's journey is not a tool that I've been using when I've been writing horror. In fact, the hero's journey it's literally non-existent. We have a hero, and she is the focus of the story, but the focus of the story is really a process. It is something that is happening around her and to her, and that she has no control over. She is she is the pinball in the machine of life, and she has very little control, but the control that she has is over herself and over her own emotions, and whether she chooses to freak out or whether she chooses to stay calm. Just some great things that are happening outside of her reach. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense, because in life you don't have control over things. I mean, if you're going to buy a house, you have no control over the financial sector. So people who are saying, oh, you know what, we may or may not give you a mortgage, you can't just say, yeah, they'll give me a mortgage, it's fine. You don't have control over that. You don't have power over that. So yeah, it's quite acceptable to write a story where the hero is just not going to maybe even win. Maybe the hero has to lose in order for the story to be complete. And that is something nice. I don't know where you would normally experience that outside of horror and maybe sci-fi. I suppose if you're writing a period drama, then you could have that as well, because good lord, history was savage, so savage, like really, really savage. But as deep and as dark as you want to go with a story, it has to be readable. There has to be human elements. There has to be a human element. And I was thinking about this. You can write a story about pretty much anything, as long as there is some emotional level that the reader can engage in. So you can write a story about a person, but people have emotions. You can use that to your advantage, and you can write a compelling story about somebody's journey, somebody's hardships. But also, you could write a story about a fish who gets separated from their parents, and then they have to find their way home. And if you add human elements, human emotions to the fish, it makes it interesting. Anthropomorphize the fish. Give them human characteristics, and you can write a story about a fish, and people will find it compelling and interesting, and maybe even Pixar will make a movie about it. But if you were to do something that had no human emotions or elements whatsoever, you'd find it really hard. Like, you could write a quite decent story about a rock just tumbling down a cliff face. A short story about a rock and it's just tumbling down a cliff face, but it has no emotions. There's nothing for the reader to latch onto. There's no stakes, there's no nothing. So although it would be an adequate description of something, it wouldn't really be a story because there's no emotion. So that's been an interesting look back at the things that I've been writing, and I'm like, yeah, maybe the hero doesn't make it out in one piece. Maybe the hero makes it out in several pieces. But as long as you have an emotional attachment to the hero, or as long as you have some understanding of the world, and that is kind of interesting, because when I started writing, I wrote a bunch of notes, and I've been looking back at them, and there is maybe one big change that I made, and that was just the name of a character, one of the ancillary characters that give you some, thank you, car, backstory. And let's just turn here. I just want to make sure we're not gonna, we need to do a vlog, but we also don't want to bump the car off or into anything. Let's, yeah, this guy's slowing down. Excellent. Thank you. Good. Where were we? Yeah, I was checking my notes, and I've been following the notes pretty faithfully, except for one. And I think, so basically I changed one of the ancillary character names, because I didn't really like what I'd written down. But I was able to add something else, to change it to something else that was much more suitable. The interesting thing about notes are, they're a pain in the ass to write, especially right at the beginning. When you want to be writing a story, you want to be You're going to be kicking bad guys through windows. You don't want to be writing notes. Well, they're super useful because they save time. All the time you put into your notes, story writing notes, it is time you will save later on. So if you need to introduce a new character, and you spend an hour looking around your living room for Mr. Door Everyman or Mr. Staple Badly, yeah, you get that stuff sorted beforehand. But yeah, so I've been following the notes pretty faithfully, and now we're into the last act of the story, and I just need to get it out of my head and onto the phone actually, onto Google Docs. But it's been good. It's been interesting. It's been slow. I did say that any story that I would write would be slow. Because, well, simply because I work and I do YouTube, and those two sap an awful lot of time. So having any time to write after family and everything is it's just precious time. So I've managed to get this thing assembled. I'm quite happy with it. Very happy with it, in fact. I think that the extra time spent between writing sessions has actually paid dividends in a way, because my subconscious has just had a lot more time to work on things. And there were some plot points that I wanted to get into the story. There were some real plot points that I wanted to get down. And I was like, yeah, plot points. I really want to get everything set, and I really want people to understand what's going on and why it's going on. And I was like, I have all of this information. And sometimes you can get a bunch of information out in maybe a sentence. Maybe less than a sentence, maybe just half a sentence, write something down and then take half the words out of it. And I was like, oh my God, this huge piece of information that I wanted to get across actually was so much simpler, because by having I added 2 extra ancillary characters so that the main character could have conversations. And I ended up really liking the ancillary characters that I wrote. There's the straight person. So the straight guy is the guy that asks the questions in a story. They're called the straight man or the straight guy or the straight person. Nothing to do with gender or anything. It is literally like Philip J. Fry in Futurama is the straight man, because he is in the future, and every time the character needs to do something, he goes, why are we doing this? Even though all of the other characters will know, he asks the questions that the audience would ask. And he has a legitimate reason to do it. God, this road is getting worse. It's less of a road and more of just a gravel track. Weird. So yeah, I added a straight person so that we could ask some questions, and I added another person who would answer them. And the answering was really simple, because these characters are meeting each other for the first time, maybe even for the last time. It's horror, after all. One of them, I was like, yeah, this person, I just add a line, this person is a florist. It's like, how do you know all this? Are you some genius? And she's like, no, I'm a florist. But I Googled it before coming here. And I was like, oh, that's such a neat thing, because if I'm going anywhere, I would absolutely Google the ass out of, get information out of where I'm going, maybe even the history of the place, layout, buildings, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I'm the sort of person who will Google things, and it made a lot of sense. Where is this lad going? Don't know. He's in the middle of the road in the country, and we've got a bunch of blind bends. We have a lot of horses under the bonnet, and I could snap her into sport mode, but I know it gets very narrow up here, and going past like you stole it might be bad for this lad. Oh, dropped it down into granny gear. All right. How low can you go? Well, as soon as we can see the future, we'll... blind bend car. Another car with a blind bend up the hill. And... Alright. Horses. Away! No. Got to give the cyclist plenty of space. Good, excellent. So, yeah, having a character, and you can say, yeah, I just Googled it. I just Googled it before I got here. And so the other characters can ask questions the audience may have. And the answer is legit, because it's a simple answer. And the person's just like, yeah, nah, this is why this is. So you can go super complicated. You can go full-on Sherlock Holmes. You can get the deer stalker out. You can straight up Hercule Poirot your way through a story by taking all the minutiae and all the details and adding them together and coming up with ideas and plans and thoughts and theories. Or you can just literally, especially if it's a modern story, just have someone whip out the phone and go, yeah, this is the answer, this is the reason. Of course, you can also take those toys away from the characters. It's quite simple to do that when you do things like play Dungeons and Dragons. You may give a lot of toys to your players as the dungeon master. So you might say, hey, here's a fiery sword and here's a bow that shoots lightning. But for all the toys you give them, you can take the toys away. And you can do that with characters in the story as well. Oh, the mobile phones. The one thing that makes horror not so scary, because they have a torch on them, because they're a way of communicating, because they're a way of finding out information. You can stop the signal. You can stop them functioning. You can drain the batteries. Yeah, there are ways of taking characters' toys away from them and making the situation a little bit more spooky, a little bit more spookums. So yeah. I don't think the modern era has made horror any less scary. I think it's always been scary and always will be scary. It just is dependent on you as a writer. Speaking of which, this is an interesting thing. Speaking of which, when I went up to Bristol in January. We went up at the end of January. My sister and I jumped in the car. My other sister, because I was talking to her about the story, and I was like, "This is the story. It's horror, but it's not like jump scare horror. It's more like a creeping horror, more like a dark story, very dark, very dry." And I said, "Look, could you read it? Could you give me some feedback? Because I don't really know where I'm going with this. Whether this story is readable and also something that you would want to read, or whether it just exists as a story and it's kind of a little bit not good." Because I come from more of a sci-fi. I like sci-fi. I like cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is where it's at. I mean, I really like William Gibson's, what was their original trilogy? Not Burning Chrome was his short stories, and then he did Neuromancer, Mona Lisa Overdrive, and Count Zero. Ooh, I can't remember the name of the anthology. The anthology? Trilogy. It's like a non-trilogy. You can read the 3 books in any direction you want. The one after that was the Bridge trilogy. Ooh, I don't know, but yeah, I like a lot of 80s style cyberpunk. So when it comes to horror, it's kind of liberating actually. I really like the genre. I didn't know if I would, but I'm finding it to be a bit more. It's nice. It's good. We're going straight over here. Why not? We got time. There was time now. I already did that. There's Twilight Zone. And there's the only man in the world, and he breaks his glasses and he can't read anymore. Oh well. Yeah, so yeah, so she read it and she said, yeah, it's a dark story. At that point, that was a few thousand words ago. So I've added more words to the story, and we're into that final stage. So it did come from a dream, the story that I'm currently writing, and I was thinking about that as well. I was like, is it cheating to use a dream as a story? And I'm like, no, because a lot of dreams that I have are very detailed. A lot of people say, oh, I don't remember, I don't have dreams, and I think that they do, but because because dreams are not made to be remembered, you just don't remember having them. I think that's what the actual phrase should be. So, yeah. I didn't get as far as the main character in our current story. I never got to the horror bit, but there was definitely sort of creeping sense of dread within the dream itself. The Audi driver thinks he owns the road. The only person worse would be a BMW driver, because then they know they own the road. Terrible. Yeah, so I had this dream, and that's basically what this is all based on. And I kind of knew the intro and I knew the outro, and I didn't have much of the connective tissue. So the connective tissue was the extra characters that were added to have those conversations, to sort of really just flesh out the world. But I was thinking, well, what do I want to write after this? Are there stories that I want to write after this? And I'm like, yeah, there probably are. Where do I go for the inspiration? Well, I can go back to my dreams. I've had a few of them. I can look back and really just pull quite a detailed world out of something that I've already dreamt of. And there is a dream that I have kind of semi-regularly, and I don't know if I've ever talked about it. I don't know if I've ever talked about it on a vlog. I'll stop here. Basically, I'm going home, and I don't know where I'm going home to, because it's not Cornwall. So I start off in a city, and this dream always starts off in a city, and it could be Reading or it could be London, and I'm on a railway platform, an old Victorian style station. There's a terminus, there's lots of trains in the terminus, there's old areas for like shops and things. The platforms feel old. I mean, this is kind of like almost like 1980s. Instead of like a modern, what you would class as a modern railway station. And I go outside to one of the external platforms and I find my train, and it's an HST, an intercity train, and I jump on this thing and I ride it out of the city into just down the line for a bit to where there's a platform, and there is another platform, and it is a lonely platform in the middle of the tracks. There's a big wide junction, it's in the countryside, and I get off and I'm the only person that gets off the train. And then I'm just standing on this platform in the middle of nowhere. You can't get off the platform because it's in the middle of the tracks. And I pick up another train, a little DMU, diesel multiple unit, a little hopper. And this thing goes on a branch line. It goes on a little single track branch line out into the countryside, and it gets dark, very, very dark. And it stops at a station, and the station is down, well, the platform is down in a cutting, a little cutting, and the actual station building is up on the road, and it's just a single road, not even two lanes, just a single country road, and there's a bridge that goes over the track itself. And I get off, and the only real light is from the train car. And I get off and I walk up some steps up to the level of the road, and it's very much like this. It's next to the coast, and you walk along the road through some fields, and you get to a little fishing village of white painted houses, and there is a house that I stop at, and there is a little wooden boat in the window, and the lights are on and there's people inside. I've never been in the house. I've never been in the house. The dream has never allowed me to see what's inside. but I've seen that journey many times. Why is the guy in red why does he keep cutting out into the road? I don't know. I mean, these guys are clipping along at nearly 30, so. Yeah, so I've seen this place. But the thing is, that whole area I know, because I've had other dreams in that kind of area. It feels very East Coast, to be honest. And there is a military road that runs along the coast, and for some reason I've driven an old transit van along there. Why? I don't know. It was a dream. Dreams don't have to make sense. What dreams are in reality is your brain running through scenarios and situations, basically just like testing out scenarios and situations, or organizing memories. They're not really meant to be remembered. So all of what's in there is really just fragments of other memories. That's what makes up a dream. They're places I've probably seen before or been to before. But yeah, I know if you walk in the opposite direction of the little village, there's a hill, and if you walk up over the hill, there's a little town with an old static like fairground, very British. There's the thing where you get the stick and the ducks, and there's like go-karts, but it's not been used for a while and it's covered in moss. And if you go beyond that town, if you walk out along the main road, you get to a larger town with a marina and boats and things. Why? I don't know. Brain just does that sometimes. Just seems to want to put together all of those bits and pieces. But because they're all there, because I know about them, if I wanted to set a horror or a story or anything in an area like that, I already have all of the detail in my head. I just need to get it down onto a page. I don't need to imagine something from scratch if I've already dreamed it, if I've already imagined it. So, yeah, I think it's, I don't think it's cheating, but it's interesting. An interesting way of going about things. So I was like, well, for the next story, what do I do? And I was like, I know what to do. I know what to do. I have an idea. Just in here, there's a blue car that really wants to be in front of us, but they won't be in front of us. Good. Excellent. Oh, the bus is being given a piggyback. Nice. Let's slow down. Oh, a Mini. A convertible Mini. Someone tried to sell me a convertible Mini once, and I said, no, I don't want a convertible Mini. It's not what I want. Now, are you going to use your indicators? No, you're not. One person is, nobody else is. Oh, the Audi. Let's give it the beans and sauce and everything else. Oh, those cyclists. We were behind them. Wow. Maybe we should have gone through Long Rock instead. Okay. Well, GG, they are giving it everything. Nice. Wait a second. The car behind us, that does look like Mum's car. Whoa. I wonder if they will pull into Sainsbury's with us. I can't quite read the number plate because we're squiggling all over the road. Interesting. Good. Well, we are back to where we are. Yeah, I'm going to go this way. So we're back to Sainsbury's. Good. Well, we had a little talk about stories. We're definitely doing some bits and pieces to do with them. Things are moving on slowly, but they are moving on. Like anything that you do, if you do it slowly, you're still doing it. Don't worry about that. In fact, some things should be done slowly. That's what she said. Yeah, the Valentine's Day video is uploading as we speak. I started uploading it yesterday, but then it's such a big upload that I went to bed and apparently the hard drive's turned off or something, so ooh, disable the ability to shut them down. Hopefully that's uploaded by the time I get back. Big old video. As ever, thanks to anyone who has was wondering how long we had on that one before it turned off and turned back on again. Thanks to anyone who has subscribed, obviously, subscribed and liked and everything, but also anyone who's donated via the Coffee link. Excellent, because electricity is super expensive, and well, it won't be long before we get the next bill, and I'm just like, ooh, I made a choice to turn the heating on. We'll see how big that one is. But yeah, thank you for watching. I mean, the channel is nothing without you guys, so thank you. And I'll tell you what, I'll catch you next time.